So the topic of our session this morning is what's new in System Center Configuration Manager. You notice there's no version on there, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And in parentheses, I have current branch, vNext, 1511. I'll explain all those coming up. But this is the next generation of Configuration Manager that has just been released in a little over a month now, almost 2 months ago now. Okay, so our agenda for today, we're going to talk about those different feature areas. So in essence, the question is, why would I want to move to this new platform for Configuration Manager? And that's what I'll give you some insight into in this morning's presentation. So we'll talk about that. We'll drill into some of those areas. I'll talk for a couple of minutes about keeping Configuration Manager up to date, because this new Configuration Manager is going to be updated in a different manner than what you're doing today with ConfigMan 2007, which hopefully you're not there, or ConfigMan 2012. So we'll talk about that. Then I'll also give you a very, very quick one-slide overview on how do you get to this new version of Configuration Manager from your current platform. I have a session tomorrow afternoon, right after lunch, that is on upgrading to Configuration Manager. So upgrading to this new platform that I'll be showing you today, how do you get there from where you are. But I've got one little intro slide in here for you. All right, so first things first. The product name is System Center Configuration Manager. That is the official name of this new release of Configuration Manager. There's no 2016. So if you hear people say Configuration Manager 2016, that is not accurate. There is no product Configuration Manager 2016. The new release is just System Center Configuration Manager. No anything else. Now, some people, as on that intro slide and on this slide, some people are actually calling it current branch. And current branch should sound familiar for those of you that are familiar with Windows 10. Because it's Windows 10, current branch for business, and long-term servicing branch. So the Configuration Manager product that's out now that you have available to upgrade to or migrate to or install clean is, in essence, a current branch release of Configuration Manager. So you're starting to see some references to current branch out there. You also see people refer to it as 1511. 1511 is the version ID for this release. However, I don't like to refer to the version like that because it's only going to be 1511 for a very, very short period of time. With this new updates and servicing feature, it's going to be changing the version very soon. So 1511 is not going to do you a whole lot of good. vNext that I had on that intro slide, agenda topic slide, vNext was the code name for this when it was in pre-release. So we were just calling it Configuration Manager vNext until they decided on the actual name, which is just Configuration Manager. So what this means to you guys is when you're on the forums, when you're calling up product support, when you're talking to other people through whatever social media you have to try and ask questions, to help people out or whatever it is, you're going to have to be very specific on knowing what version of Configuration Manager you're talking about. 2007, 2012, SP1, SP2, 2012 R2, R2 SP1, or Configuration Manager, and then the version of Configuration Manager, 1511 or whatever is going to be coming in the future. So it's going to make things a little more complicated for you, but for my talk today, we're talking Configuration Manager, current branch, 1511. And I might say vNext, I apologize. I was doing some pre-release testing stuff for a long time, so I know it as vNext. But it's all the same type of product. So I'll try and state 2007 or 2012, I'm going to refer to those. So if I just say Configuration Manager, it's this product I'm going to show you today. All right, so one of the biggest, and I've got this in a few different bucket areas of updates. One of the biggest areas of updates for Configuration Manager is in the area of Windows 10 support. And you might be thinking to yourself, I've got ConfigMan 2012 and I have Windows 10 support there today. And that is absolutely true. You actually have support for Windows 10 as a client in Configuration Manager 2007 as well. And 2012 gives you much further and better support. This version of the product gives you complete support for Windows 10, is what we'll talk about. All right, so first thing off is you have full client capabilities. So anything you could do with a Windows XP up through Windows 7 and now Windows 8, 8.1 as a client in ConfigMan 2012, you can do those same things with ConfigMan as it stands, current branch 1511. So full client support. Now I just list, I have Windows XP on here just because you guys are really familiar with that. It's no longer a supported platform. So the minimum client platform in the new Configuration Manager is Windows 7. I think actually technically they support Windows Vista, but we all know nobody uses that. The second bullet there, use of Windows Defender. So if you guys happen to be using System Center Endpoint Protection, which installs a new agent on your clients along with the ConfigMan agent, you don't do that on Windows 10. It uses the native Windows Defender built into the operating system. It's just kind of treated like endpoint protection. So if you create endpoint protection policies in Config Manager, they'll get shipped down to your Windows 10 clients, and it's going to influence how Windows Defender works. Okay, the next thing is software distribution support. You have Windows 10 listed as a supported operating system for applications, packages, and programs. You have that in your ConfigMan 2007 and 2012 support as well. So that's fairly cool. You have support for Windows Business Store. So you'll be able to use the Windows Business Store and get applications from there with Configuration Manager, as well as some additional things in mobile device management that I'll talk about later on in this presentation. So there's some cool stuff happening in the MDM space with Windows 10 and Config Manager. Full operating system deployment support. So ConfigMan 2007 has 0 support for deploying Windows 10 through OSD. ConfigMan 2012 has support for your normal operating system deployment capabilities. In place, wipe and load type scenario, or your break fix scenario, those type of bare metal and so on. That's all there. What this adds to you, this new version of Config Manager, is in the product support for doing a Windows in-place upgrade. You don't have that in ConfigMan 2012. There was some hacky stuff you could do, go to the ConfigMan website and download, or the Microsoft website and download some new task sequence engine and PowerShell scripts and so on to do this, but this is in the box. So you can do an in-place upgrade. And Microsoft's recommendation from Windows 7, Windows 8, 8.1 to get to 10 is to do an in-place upgrade. So it's built into the product, and I'll show you what that looks like here just momentarily. As well as all the other scenarios. So your wipe and load, your break fix, your replacement OS type scenarios, and bare metal. Another very cool thing in the Windows 10 support is the what's called Windows 10 servicing rings and servicing plans. You can create servicing plans in Configuration Manager to control when you automatically deploy new builds of Windows 10 out to your infrastructure, out to your environment. And you can have multiple different servicing plans targeted at different collections, so different collections of clients will get Windows 10 builds at different time intervals. And you have a great dashboard to help you monitor what your status is for Windows 10 in your environment, what versions you have, what builds you have, and so on, and what your deployment status is. So very, very cool. And that will help you a lot as you guys move to Windows 10, being able to monitor that and control that through Configuration Manager. So let's swap over and do a quick little demo of what we're doing in some of those areas. So first thing is, I just wanted to pop up and show you that here's the help about, and here's the product name, System Center Configuration Manager, no 2016 or anything after it. It does tell you down here that it is version 1511, so that's the current version of the product. And the build number, you guys are familiar with these type of build numbers, it's 8325 is the build number. All right, so get rid of that, and just show you a couple of things here on Windows 10 support. So here's I'm going to go up to an application, go to this application, go to deployment types. I got one deployment type, edit that deployment type. I'll go in there and add a requirement because there aren't any built in. I didn't add one already. And now if I go down to the condition, and I'll zoom in here in just a second when I get there for you. Go to operating system, and go right here. And now I can zoom in, and you see that Windows 10, 64 and 32-bit is listed as a platform or operating system for your application requirements. So you can state that this deployment type for this application is acceptable on Windows 10 or is not acceptable on Windows 10. So you can control your deployments. And you get the same scenario with packages and programs. You just go to the program, go to the advanced tab, and you got the use specific platforms in Windows 10, 32-bit, 64 bits listed there as well. I just won't show you that. But you do have that. Now, deployments. So here is a normal task sequence that you guys, oops, I double-clicked instead of edit, sorry about that, that you guys would utilize to create a OS deployment. Let me bring it over here. So this is a task sequence that you're familiar with. I used the install an existing image package task sequence and just answered all the questions here, and that's a normal thing. Now yours might be a whole lot more complicated. You might be using MDT, and that creates much, much larger task sequences. But this is kind of a bare minimum task sequence that you would have running through our wizard. With the in-place upgrade support, so you go to create new task sequence, and option number 1 here is, oops, not media, apologize. Yeah, I want to create task sequence. Wrong button there. So this top option is what I used to create that task sequence you just saw. We have this new option here, upgrading the operating system from an upgrade package. So I have an upgrade package here. You go to upgrade packages. This used to be called operating system install packages. Now it's operating system upgrade packages. And all you do here is you just point to your Windows 10, in this case, source file. So the media that you would download from the volume license site or wherever you get your media from. So if I go to data source, you can just see it's pointing at my Windows 10 source files. So it's just a flat dump of all the Windows 10 source files. That becomes your upgrade package. So I ran through this other task sequence here, and I used this 4th option of upgrade an operating system from an upgrade package. And here's the task sequence that got created. So upgrade to Windows 10. And let me do an edit on that one. And let me put those 2 task sequences side by side. And look at the number of steps. The guy on the left, the in-place upgrade, is a whole lot smaller. So basically, you're going to check for readiness, which you can do in the other one. It's just not a built-in step. But you're going to check, make sure your target system has enough memory, enough processor, enough disk space, and by the default, checking to make sure it's a client-based OS. So using this check readiness, there'd be no way for you to, let's say, accidentally re-image your Exchange server with a Windows 10 client image, and all of a sudden your company's mad because you no longer have Exchange email access. So it does that. Which, again, you can do that in the other one. And then it does the upgrade. So it does a command line for upgrade, and then it has a built-in restart, and that's it. Checks to make sure I'm applicable, do the upgrade with a long command line, and then restart the computer. That's a whole lot simpler than this other task sequence over here. We got all these different actions and stuff you got to do to install a clean OS. So much, much better way of upgrading to Windows 10 and the preferred way from Microsoft. Microsoft IT tested that out and did tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of clients using that upgrade process, and they fell in love with it. That's why we did the hacky stuff, the product group did, that hacky stuff in the ConfigMan 2007 space and then built it into the console in 2012. So way easier to do your upgrades. And the last thing I'll show you here is down below, let me go ahead and collapse these for you. There's a new node in Configuration Manager now called Windows 10 Servicing. So under your software library, click on Windows 10 Servicing, and this is where it shows you what Windows 10 usage you have, what builds you have, and so on in your environment. So this is saying I got one version, one client installed that's Windows 10 1511. So 100% of my population is running the most recent release, business-ready release for Windows 10. And that happens to be a release-ready version that can also have CBB builds or LTSB builds. And it will show you the number of those that you have in your environment. So very cool. You can very, very easily with this see what you have. Now from there, the power gets into defining servicing plans, servicing rings plans. So if I go to servicing plans, I don't have any by default. So if I go create one real quick, I'll say pilot CB. And just click next. Where did my mouse go? There it is. And you specify your target collection. I want to go to my all workstations collection. And you'll have different collections with different targets in it. And then now you just specify whether you're going to create a servicing plan for current branch of Windows 10 or current branch for business, CBB version. So you specify the version, and then you just use this little slider to state that I want to deploy this build, this current branch, to this collection on day 0, day 15, day 30, whatever it is. So you create multiple different servicing plans targeting different collections to get different builds of Windows 10 at different time frames. And you just walk through the rest of the wizard on, are you deploying and give it 3 hours, or is that ASAP mandatory right away at that 30-day time frame or whatever you create. And then in your console, you'll be able to see all those servicing plans, and you'll be able to track them down here. Well, it'll also show you when your clients are nearing expiration. So if you had a 1507 client, it's nearing expiration because you got 1 year's worth of life on that client. And so the 1507 build of the original Windows 10 is nearing expiration. So if I had a 1507, that would be flagged there. And then flagged down here, expired soon, I'm sorry, expire soon, expose it, expired. Then down at the very bottom, the last thing is, when you scroll down, it gives you kind of a roadmap for Windows 10. It shows you for release ready, business ready, and LTSB versions what the kind of the life expectancy is. So it's showing me that for 1510, I'm current, and it's going to go for a while. 1507, you can see here it's got the red. That means it's near end of life. So 1507 is getting near end of life, and that's here, it'd be in that category of expire soon. So it'll help track for you and let you see what the status is of Windows 10. This is just static stuff from Microsoft. The top portion of this dialog is all your information. But this is letting you see what you have and then what the status is for Microsoft as to the life expectancy of these different builds. And this bottom portion, this little bar chart stuff, will get updated periodically from Microsoft to give you updated information as new builds come out and as you go to different releases. So it's a great way of you monitoring your status of your Windows 10 deployments. Okay, so now let's go ahead and jump back. Oops. Okay, updates and servicing. So that's Windows 10, a great reason to move to Configuration Manager from whatever your current platform is if you're managing Windows 10. Not everybody's ready to manage Windows 10 in their environment yet. You may just got done rolling out to Windows 7 or 8 or 8.1 from your Windows XP stuff. So the next feature in the product is called, its code name was called Easy Setup, but it's called the Updates and Servicing feature. As I introduced the topic, I said this is a current branch release of Configuration Manager, 1511. And this is the feature built into the product that's going to help you keep Configuration Manager up to date in a very, very easy fashion. So the product group knows that it's very hard for you guys to work with cumulative updates and service packs. You got to work with your change boards to schedule change windows, to control when you're allowed to do your upgrades to your environment. Service packs take a long time to get deployed and implemented. There's a lot of steps and processes going through to get that done. So they wanted to make something a little bit easier for you, keeping Configuration Manager up to date as quickly and easily as possible. And that's what this is what they came up with, the updates and servicing feature. So the theory here is that you have a site system, a new site system role called the Service Connection Point that has internet connectivity. On a daily basis, that site system role called the Service Connection Point is going to connect up to the Microsoft Cloud. It's going to say, here I am running build 1511, 8325.1000. Are there any new Configuration Manager updates for my environment? If there are, they're going to be automatically downloaded. Today, you guys have to watch blogs, you have to watch Twitter, you have to watch news groups or forums to find out about a new cumulative update or a new service pack. You got to go search the web to find it. You got to download it, get it extracted. Oftentimes, you have issues with downloads. Get that download extracted, then you have to go and do your install. Now what happens, this guy finds out about it, it downloads automatically for you. Doesn't install anything, it downloads, it extracts, and then that new update appears in the Configuration Manager console. And you just go ahead and see the updates in the console, you right click, say install update pack, walk through a wizard, bingo, it's done. It does all the in-place upgrade of Configuration Manager for you. You decide you don't want to upgrade. Well, you don't have to for a year. You've got 1 year of life on a Configuration Manager build now, just like Windows 10. You got 1 year of life before you have to update that build. Same thing's going to happen with Config Manager. You're going to have to upgrade sometime in that next year time frame, otherwise the product is out of support. It doesn't stop working, but it is out of product support at that point. So it's a current branch release. That's why a lot of people are calling it that, and you have to do that upgrade. There's in-console monitoring to let you track the upgrade of your site to the new build of Configuration Manager. Very, very easy to do that. These are going to replace cumulative updates that you have today from ConfigMan 2012, and they're going to replace service packs. So all you're going to expect to see anymore, as of right now, the current plan from the product group is these updates coming down on a roughly quarterly basis. So somewhat like cumulative updates, but it's also going to deliver new updates, features to you, very much like service packs do. As part of this, another aspect of this is client piloting. So today, when you implement Service Pack 1 for R2, you got your site upgraded, it upgraded your client bits automatically, not on the clients, but in your client folder, so any new clients you deployed got that new version of client, R2 SP1. Well, you want to test this out, so you would create a package from definition, point to the new R2 SP1 source files. You would go ahead and deploy that as a software distribution package out to a test collection of clients. You'd track that, and when you're all done, you'd expand your collection targeting or do whatever you need to do, and then get all your clients upgraded. With this new feature, what happens when you install one of those update packs, one of the questions you get asked is, it'll tell you if there's a new console version, new site version, new client version. If there's a new client version, it's going to ask you, do you want to upgrade everybody automatically or eventually? Or do you want to do pre-production client testing? If you turn on pre-production client testing, you designate a test collection, a collection of pilot clients. Those clients get upgraded to this new build automatically, immediately when their next client policy polling cycle, so within an hour, generally. They'll get upgraded automatically. Then you don't have to do anything. Any new clients you install still get the old version of Configuration Manager before you're released past 1511. When you're all satisfied that everything's gone well with this new version of Config Manager, you just go and run a wizard that will then move these pre-production bits up to your production bits. And then you upgrade all the rest of your clients, however you normally upgrade clients. Software distribution, automatic client upgrade, whatever. It's got in-console monitoring to help you track your production client deployments versus your pre-production client deployments. So very, very cool. Now, there's a slide here that says demo. I can't demo because there are no updates for 1511 yet. So the current version of the product, there's no updates for it. If we have some time at the end of the session, I've got a series of like 9 screenshots walking you through an available update with then walking through the wizard and then showing you the pre-production client deployment stuff. So I can show you that if we have time at the end of the session, but there are no updates available for Production Configuration Manager. There is an update, or there are updates available for pre-production client or Configuration Manager, so I took the screenshots from that. So we'll see where we're at with time on that. Mobile device management. So this is something that Microsoft obviously cares about a lot. And they've been pushing Microsoft Intune, formerly Windows Intune, for a while. They're making some changes in this area. So they've got a couple different things here to talk about. First off is what's called hybrid MDM support. You know, there's Microsoft Intune as a standalone cloud-based service that a lot of people are using. Hybrid environment is when you integrate your Microsoft Intune subscription with Configuration Manager, so that when you enroll your devices into Microsoft Intune, those mobile devices appear in your ConfigMan console, just like your Macs, your Linux, your Unix, and all your Windows systems do. So you got one console you're using to manage all your devices, whether they're in the cloud or whether they're on premises. So that's called hybrid support. Some people call it integrated support, whatever you want to. It's Microsoft Intune connected to Configuration Manager. So the big change here is that parity between the online service and the integrated environment. Because the online service is an online thing that Microsoft owns, it's much easier for them to update new features, new capabilities in the online service than it is to upgrade things in the on-premise environment, which means you guys all have to be involved with stuff. So your online service is always going to have new stuff available in it, new features, than your integrated or hybrid environment has. So when 1511 came out, there was parity between online and the on-premise environment. the integrated environment. Now, certainly since then, Intune's had another release or two since then. So there's no longer parity, but at the time when I wrote these slides, there was parity in the product. And then part of that update here in the integration is Windows 10 support. So you can support Windows 10 phones as well as Windows 10 devices, tablets, and Surface, and so on as OMA DM clients. Okay, so that's the stuff that we've had for a while, ever since ConfigMan 2012 SP1. What's new is on-premise mobile device management. So when I was at Microsoft, I worked with TAP customers, and towards my end of the time at Microsoft, I had two specific TAP customers that I worked with. Neither of them would use Microsoft Intune integrated with Config Manager because it required their mobile devices to talk to the cloud. That meant they had to have device information up in the cloud, had to have user accounts up in the cloud in Azure AD and so on. And they didn't want that. Now with ConfigMan, there's on-premise mobile device management. So your mobile devices would never talk to the cloud to do this Microsoft Intune stuff. They talk to on-premise infrastructure. They don't talk to your site server, but obviously you have a site server. They're going to talk to a management point. They're going to talk to a distribution point. They'll enroll through an enrollment point and enrollment proxy point. So they do their enrollment locally in Configuration Manager. They get content from an on-premise DP. They talk to an on-premise management point as opposed to going to the Microsoft Intune cloud service to get all this work done. So very, very cool. So it keeps all that stuff local. Now you do still have to have a Microsoft Intune subscription for this, but it's for the infrastructure, it's not for your mobile devices. Your mobile devices never have to talk to Intune. Now I'll show you the capabilities on the next slide. The bottom bullet is a very important one, however. It is only available today for Windows 10. So Windows 10 desktops, laptops, mobile devices. Windows 10 has OMA DM, a MDM agent built into it, so you can just use that to enroll into either Intune or into this on-premise solution. Microsoft Product Group knows they're going to expand this to iOS and Android coming forward, but they, at RTM of Configuration Manager, only support was for Windows 10. Now, you do normal stuff here. Hardware inventory, which gets your list of installed applications. You can deploy settings, controlling cameras and browsers that you're using and so on. You can do certificate deployments, software distribution, app deployment, including user-targeted MSIs, which you don't get with Microsoft Intune. You only get device-targeted apps. Here you can also do user-targeted MSI deployments. And something new the product group's going into is bulk enrollment. So traditionally in an Intune environment or mobile device management, the end user takes their device, they have to go to Intune, they have to walk through an enrollment process to get their device enrolled into that solution to be managed by the company. That's okay if it's an end user's device. But I know in Europe it's very prevalent for corporate-owned devices. So I join a company and they give me a device to use. Well, it doesn't make sense for me, the end user, to walk through an enrollment process for my corporate-owned device. So now there's a bulk enrollment process where the organization, the company can enroll that device for me, and I get it and it's already enrolled. But they can still deploy software to me as an end user. So pretty cool. And that'll be coming for iOS and Android coming up as well. OSD. So there's lots of updates in the operating system deployment space. Driver improvements. Drivers have been a constant complaint area over the past. Just because there's so many of them and it's hard to manage those, get them imported, knowing what's available for boot images, what shouldn't be, and so on. So a bunch of changes in driver import scenario. And if any of you guys have ConfigMan 2012 SP2, ConfigMan 2012 R2 SP1, this stuff I'm going to show you here is backported into that last service pack for ConfigMan 2012 as well. So you have the same support. So now some of the improvements, and I'll show you these in a demo in just a second. Your driver path is up in the dialog as opposed to down in the list of drivers. So you don't have to scroll for miles to get to the end of the driver to see what it is. Just scroll for a half mile instead of a full mile now. So they put the path up above. It's easier to do sorting, filtering on specific drivers like signed drivers versus unsigned drivers versus video drivers versus drivers that are x86, drivers from a specific manufacturer. So got filtering, sorting capabilities there. Warnings when you try and import drivers that don't make sense for boot images. So I'm trying to import a audio driver. Well, I don't need to put an audio driver in a boot image. So what will happen is when I try and import that audio driver, a warning pops up and says, do you really want to import this? Because if you're going to import these for boot images, they're not going to be used. You can still import them because you might want them for your full OS images. But now it's also going to block you when you try and import drivers that don't make sense for boot images. So if you try and import a wrong architecture, like an x86 driver into an x64 boot image, it's going to block you, not let you do that. So it's going to warn you on some stuff, it's going to block you on some other things. Now, one of the really, really cool things, and if I was a ConfigMan 2012 customer, this would be one reason that I would have updated to the last service pack on day one, is that OSD can be a pretty risky operation. You can lose your job very easily with OSD. Flattening your Exchange server with a client OS on it. Let's say re-imaging your CEO's laptop when it shouldn't have been re-imaged. Those are career-limiting moves with OSD. And it's pretty easy to do that. It's very easy to just accidentally click the all systems collection for your target deployment. And that's not a good thing. So what happens now with Configuration Manager, when you're deploying a task sequence through OSD, it actually does not let you pick the all systems collection. So it filters out automatically all of the built-in collections other than all unknown computers, which the whole reason for all unknown computers is for OSD. So obviously that one stays. But you can't deploy OSD images anymore to all systems, all desktop and server clients, all mobile devices, which obviously couldn't deploy images to mobile devices anyway. But those are out. You can't filter those, you can't see those, can't deploy to them. It will also automatically filter any collections that have more members in the collection than a admin configured limit. The default is 100. So it's going to automatically filter out any collections that have more than 100 clients in it, members in it. You can clear that checkbox and pick whatever you want to. But now you're having to really pick your own collections for OSD targeting because you can't pick all systems. Yes, you can create your own collection that in essence is all systems. And yes, you can deploy a task sequence to that and wipe out everybody. But it's something that you created on your own, and hopefully you're a little more sharp than that, but we all lose our jobs eventually. So you may not, but I'll show you what this looks like. It also warns you when you deploy to a collection that has server-based OSs in it as members in that collection, and has ConfigMan site systems in it, because you probably don't want to deploy your Windows 10 image to your site server or your management point or distribution point or any of those other site systems or anything else that's a server-based OS. Now again, you saw that in-place upgrade, it had that check readiness. It would have filtered it out anyway. It would not have run on it. It would have started, it would have failed. But it will warn you in the UI. So what this is going to do is going to, anytime you create an OS task sequence that's required, so a required being mandatory task sequence deployment, is going to do this risky deployment verification stuff. So let me show you what that looks like in just a second. The next thing we want to talk about is WinPE Pure Cache. This is very cool. So you guys have scenarios where you have branch offices with half dozen, 20, whatever is number of employees there in computers. And you don't have a distribution point there. So when you do an OS deployment scenario, all 10, 20 clients have to reach across your WAN link to your home office or wherever your distribution point is to download that Windows 10 build and get it installed. So it's okay if one person does that, but 15, 20 people do that, that's a lot of traffic over your wire. So what Windows PE Pure Cache is when you enable this as a setting, and then in your task sequence, what happens is the very first client that boots up in WinPE goes to your distribution point across the wire, downloads that OS image, it caches it into the ConfigMan client cache. And it keeps it there after it's booted up into the full OS Windows 10 image, let's say. So you completed OSD, he's now running Windows 10. He's kept that Windows 10 image, that WIM file, on his local hard drive. Now clients 2 through 15 want that same image. They'll get it from that first client that already downloaded it that's now running full Windows 10. They won't have to reach across your WAN over to your distribution point and download that 3 to 10 gig image file. They're going to get it from the local subnet. So it saves a lot of network traffic there. It's not specific to Windows 10, it can be Windows 7. So any configuration manager client can support Windows PE Pure Cache. It sounds a lot like branch cache, but it has nothing to do with branch cache. Just kind of the functionality is very similar. There's also support for task sequences that reboot. So you have scenarios you guys have seen and run into where you have software updates, you're deploying your task sequence, and some of them require reboots, and some of them require 2 reboots, and your task sequence gets blown up. It now remembers where you were, and it'll go ahead and pick up where it left off after the reboot. Support for media greater than 32 gigabytes in size when you're doing standalone media or boot media. SMSTS log size inconsistency. So the scenario there was that you did a command line that said have an SMSTS log of 2 gigabytes in size. But when you booted up into WinPE, it was doing the normal 512K log file. And now things blew up and you had to talk to product support and you lost all the information because it rolled over the log file. So now it'll keep whatever you specify for your log file size and number of log files throughout the entire process so that you have them for troubleshooting as necessary. And then audit status messages so that you know who's been doing what. So I mentioned that risky deployment stuff, and I'll show you that in just a second. If I choose to override some of those configuration manager warnings, it's going to create an audit status message saying, Wally's the bozo that re-imaged everybody. Well, maybe not quite like that, but it's going to let me know who was the one that overrode those config man defaults and got warned about not doing this. So it's going to let me know that through audit status messages. So if we go back over here, let's go to operating system deployment. Let's take that task sequence I have here for installing Windows 10. We're going to do a deployment of it. I'm going to click on, I never showed you the browser. Let me cancel this. Let me show you the import stuff, driver stuff first. So here's the drivers. So here's the path. They moved the common portion of that path. Instead of having it down here in front of your file names, they moved it up top. So you don't have to worry about scrolling down through primary $C stuff, OSD drivers. By default, there's a checkbox that says, show me only signed drivers. So all the drivers here are signed, because you got this checkbox right there. It says hide drivers that are not in storage or network class for boot images. So right there, I can click this checkbox. It'll remove any drivers that are not either storage drivers or video drivers, or network drivers. So the stuff that I would need to have in boot images. It'll hide those for me automatically. I can do filtering here, VMware. And now it shows me just the drivers that are VMware capable. Let me go here and I'll change this to x86. Let me go ahead and pick a couple x86 drivers. I'll say next. I'm not going to worry about driver packages for now. I'm going to go to my x64 boot image. And that's the normal thing. It says, hey, you have to update your DPs. So yeah, I'll update my DPs. And now it says one or more of the selected drivers not in a storage or network class. So it's letting me know that I'm trying to import stuff that probably don't need to have for boot images. Are you sure you want to do that? And I can say yes. Oops. And then I must have selected something wrong here. Oh, I picked some drivers that had both 64-bit on it as well. Yeah, let me go back here and because it should have blocked me. Let me go. Yeah, those both had x64. Okay, let's go the other way around. Then let's go to x64. There we go. Take a couple of 64-bit drivers. And now let me try and add them to this x86 boot image. Same thing, update DPs. And now I get this warning, or this error. I can't do that. I can't import a 64-bit driver into a 32-bit boot image. So it'll block me from adding the wrong stuff to my boot images. So pretty cool. And again, you have this in the latest service pack of Config Manager. That didn't sound good. Okay, now we're going to go back to deploying this task sequence, Windows 10. I'm going to browse for my collection. As soon as I hit browse on collections, it says that the task sequence here has the potential to be a high-risk deployment. So just potential right now. You're deploying a task sequence of operating system stuff. It could be risky to do that. So, okay, I've been warned. And now you see my list of collections. No all systems, no all desktop and server clients, no all mobile devices, which again I know you can't do, and you can't deploy to user collections, so those are filtered out. So it has all unknown computers, which makes sense, and all Windows 7 clients. Notice it has one member in it. I have this checkbox at the top, hide collections with member count greater than the site's minimum configuration 2. So any collection, I change this, the default is 100. Any collection's got 2 or more members, it's going to block. So it's going to hide it automatically. So let me clear that checkbox. And now it shows me more collections. And it tells me I've chosen to display things that are beyond what the admin configured for me. So let me go ahead and take my all workstations collection. Oh, no, let me take all servers. And let's go to all servers. And let's make this required. Because if it's available, it appears in Software Center. Anybody can do what they want to in Software Center. So it's their own fault if they reimage their box. But required, they don't have a choice. Now I get this message box pops up and says, previously this had potential to be high risk. This is a high risk deployment. The reason being it has more than 2 resources, so I declare a checkbox. It has server-based clients in the target, and I may not want to do that, so we're just making sure that you're fine reimaging servers, and it has config manager site systems in it. So it's letting me know that I'm going beyond my admin's default, I'm deploying to servers, and by the way, I'm going to reimage your site server when I do this. And are you sure you want to do that? And if I'm sure, I click this checkbox, and this is the one that says, Wally's the dummy that did this. So it'll be audited, and people will know that it was me that did this. So again, this is in the latest service pack for ConfigMan 2012. So if you're not there, I would get this in there today, or you're doing it right now, I assume, to get there. So that's going to help you out a lot. But outside that, it's really the Windows 10 stuff are the big things in OSD outside of a few little servicing things there. All right, so now, last bucket area, just some additional catch-all areas. But some are still really cool. The top one might be my favorite feature, not me personally, but I know a lot of people really like it, is the ability now to specify management points per boundary group. So this is one of the most common reasons that people put secondary sites out in their infrastructure today, to have a management point in that location with those clients that those clients are going to use. Because with the secondary site, clients will only use the MP that they have access to in that secondary site. So you put a secondary site out there. You could put a management point remotely at that secondary site. However, there's no way to force that client to use that MP. It randomly picks an MP in that site that's available to it. Until now. Now it's very, very easy to designate this MP is for this set of clients. And clients are going to prefer management points in that boundary group. You can have up to 10 MPs per site and be spread all around the world. You just put them in the boundary group, just like you're putting DPs out there to control which DPs your clients have access to. Now that says preferred MP, not required MP. Preferred MP means when the clients get this, what's called an MP list, the list of all the MPs are available, the ones in their boundary group float to the top of that list. And they're going to try that preferred MP first. If they can connect to it and use it, great, they're going to. If they can't get to it, network connectivity or it's offline or whatever the scenario is, they still will fall back to some other MP in your MP list. Because it's more important for you to have your clients managed, even if that means going across the WAN link to get policies and report inventory and status and so on. And then at the next cycle, it'll go ahead and try and pick that preferred MP again. And you can certainly have multiple MPs in a single boundary group if you want to. So that's very cool. Microsoft Azure support. Today in ConfigMan 2012, it's very, very limited in what support you have for Azure. Now you can put your ConfigMan architecture on-premise, manage clients up in Azure as well as on-premise clients. You can put your ConfigMan architecture in Azure, manage Azure-based clients as well as on-premise clients. You can split it. I could have my site server on-premise, but I could have management point, DP, software update point up in Azure if I want to. You got full support for Azure-based scenarios now, which you didn't have in 2012. And there will be a designator on client properties if this is a Azure-based environment or not. If that client's based in Azure, if it's Hyper-V or whatever it is. The third bullet, a very, very common request. People have hated the fact that sometimes end users would start in the application catalog to get software. They'd pick a piece of software, they click install, and they would say, you can view status in Software Center. So you had to load the Software Center application to see what the status was of that install, or to uninstall it, or to do any troubleshooting and so on. So it's two different portals. Now it's a single portal. So there's one portal that end users would utilize. It's still called Software Center. User-targeted software appears now in Software Center, as well as device-targeted software. So for the most part, you don't have to use application catalog anymore. You still have to have the roles if you want to do user targeting, but the actual application catalog you only have to load anymore is if you want to do admin approvals. So if you have that approval workflow turned on, you have to use the application catalog. Or if you want to select that checkbox on the last tab there, devices tab, where it says, I regularly use this computer to do my work, basically setting UDA relationship, that's still only in the application catalog. Outside that, you do all your application catalog work inside Software Center. So very, very cool. Site and hierarchy scalability improvements. A single primary site can go up to 175,000, like you guys care. The vast majority of the world is 15,000 and below, but there are some companies like Microsoft and others that are well beyond 175,000 clients. Microsoft's about double that. And a single hierarchy can now go up to 700,000 clients, which I only know one company in the world that Config Manager has more than that. But everybody else fits inside the 700,000 clients. So, all right, multiple deployments for a single ADR. So in the past, when you created an automatic deployment rule, it would go ahead and create your software update group or append to it, create a software update package, you put your stuff in it, and then create a deployment for you. But it was targeted to a single deployment for that ADR. But you guys have different processes for deploying. You have your pilot collection you deploy to, then you have your pilot production collection you deploy to, then you have your servers on Sunday, your servers on Wednesday, your servers on Saturday collections. That might be one ADR, you gotta create multiple different ADRs. Now you can create one ADR, create multiple deployments, going to different scheduling options for those different targets that you need, audience that you need to have. Official support for using task sequences outside of operating system deployment. You guys have been doing it for years. It works. It's never been supported. Only OSD task sequences have been supported. Now, a lot of other stuff in using task sequences outside of OSD are supported. There's a TechNet doc that shows you all the different actions from task sequences that are now supported outside of OSD. So you can very, very easily find that and be within product support. Future updates. So a few things that aren't there today. Ability to manage Office 365 desktop client updates. So today use a software update point, which connects to WSUS, connects to Microsoft Updates to get catalogs for Microsoft Updates. Great, that all works fantastic. Office 365 is a little bit different of an animal. You gotta go to this Office CDN place to get your downloads and so on. The product already supports this. There just aren't any Office updates available, Office 365 updates. But what's going to happen now with this integration is that you use the same software update workflow that you're used to today. You'll have a software update point. It will synchronize with WSUS. These Office 365 updates will be there. You'll get these Office 365 updates down. But what will happen now is when you deploy those updates to your clients, Config Manager is going to go ahead and download those from the CDN location, Office CDN location, and give them to the Office client for deployment. So it won't be your Windows Update client that's deploying your updates like normal updates are. It'll be the Office 365 desktop client will do these deployments from the Office cache where we downloaded the updates to. So that's there in our product, being Config Manager. Office team is just right now writing their updates and publishing them to WSUS. So. Cluster-aware patch support. So the ability of treating multiple different computers as a kind of a single entity for software updating. And then being able to designate, here's a collection of 20 computers in it, I want to treat as a cluster. I only want you to shut down or patch 50% of those at a time. And don't get the rest of them until that first 50% is done. And in the future, you'll even be able to designate the order of the computers you want to patch. So I want to patch server 7, then server 3, then server 10, then server 1, then server 3. It'll wait until each one of those in preference order has been done before it moves on to the next one. You can specify PowerShell scripts for node draining before you do the patching, as well as node resuming after you've done that rebooting and stuff, things you have to want to restart and so on, designated. So very cool. SQL Server Always On Availability Group support. The rest of System Center's had it for a long time. Config Manager never has. In fact, it's busted if you try it in 2012. It will be there in a coming release where you'll be able to install your Config Manager environment, telling it to use a SQL Server Always On Availability Group endpoint. You'll even be able to do a migration, a swap over from using your traditional SQL Server installation to an Always On Availability Group, even with your site's already installed. So very cool. So let me show you a couple of those things. Oops, not that. Going here. Go back into full screen mode. So Software Center. So here's the new Software Center. It still says, obviously, Software Center in the title. It has a little more modern of a look and feel to it. Here I got 3 different things I've targeted this computer, and they just appear here in applications, even though one's an application, one's a package, and one's actually a task sequence. And obviously, if I tried to run this one, this would bomb out because I'm sitting on my server, my site server, and this is that upgrade to Windows 10 task sequence, which is new that filtering anyway. But it just has the ability of searching and filtering here for applications, software updates, OSD, and so on. Has the normal things you had from Software Center before. Does have branding. You can change the branding here. And if you actually do have a Windows Intune subscription, Microsoft Intune subscription, sorry, they renamed it. Microsoft Intune subscription, not only can you brand it, you actually put a company logo there, just like you can do in the company portal. But that requires the Intune integration. So that's just that guy real quick. For those of you that want to get rid of your secondary sites for preferred MPs, all you do is go to administration, you go to site configuration, you go to your sites node, you would go to, before I get there, if I go to site properties, there's a new tab up here called deployment verification. If you go to deployment verification, this is where you set what your size for collections for OSD targeting that are filtered out by default, and whether or not you want to block or warn if your target collections contain config-man site systems. The defaults are 100 and block. I changed it to 2 and warn, so I could do appropriate demos there, but you can change that. But if I want to turn on the preferred MPs, I would go to hierarchy settings, and right on the general tab, there's this checkbox, clients prefer to use MPs specified in boundary groups. Just select the checkbox. And then I go to my boundary group, or groups. So boundary group, go to properties of my boundary group. Go to the references tab. And then right here in the middle, it lists management points along with your state migration points and distribution points. So now you just go in there and add those MPs into that appropriate boundary group so that clients will go ahead and prefer those when they do their next MP lookup, which is every 24, 25 hours, something like that, or startup and so on. So very, very easy for you to get there to set that. This is the RTM build, so I can't show you cluster-aware updating because it's not in the RTM of the product, or SQL Server Always On Availability Groups. But what would happen is if I went to Assets and Compliance, went to a device collection, and I'll just say all servers, and go to Properties, what will happen is on that collection, right in here in all this white space, you'll have new text that says, and a checkbox says, treat all these members as a server collection, as a cluster. And then there'll be a settings button. You click the settings button, it'll pop up and let you specify your percentage of systems that can be shut down at any point in time. And then in the future, as a radio button, to let you order your systems that you want to go ahead and be patched in that specific order, then your 2 PowerShell scripts for node drain and node resume. Now the cool thing is that this does not require cluster services at all. It's just the name of clustering. You can put workstations in here with the same collection as servers. It's just treating a bunch of configuration manager clients as a cluster so that you can control how they get patched and the order in which they get patched. So it's a very, very cool thing coming. Okay, I got 5 minutes here. So let me go ahead and show you some of those screenshots for that. Oh, let's show you live first. Go back here live. So this updates and servicing node, let me show you where stuff is, and I'll go show you screenshots of it. So in your console now, in the cloud services node, there's this new node or folder called updates and servicing. So when the product group releases new versions of Configuration Manager, and your service connection point has found out about that new version, it's going to download automatically. Once it's available, it's going to appear here. It'll show you the build number, the description, and it'll state that it's available as an update. Once you've done that, if you want to install that, you'll run through a wizard, and I'll show you a screenshot here in just a minute. You'll use the monitoring workspace, and you go to down at the bottom, there's site servicing status. And this will let you track that update of Configuration Manager and its progress. And I'll show you that again in screenshots. And last thing here before we go look at those screenshots is under client status. This is where you look at client health and client activity. There's 2 new nodes that have been added here. Production client deployment status and pre-production client deployment status. So let me see all my clients that are running the production config-man client version, and let me see the status of all my clients running the pre-production client status, pre-production client version. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you those in screenshots real quick. And right here. Okay, so here you can see I'm on the updates and servicing node. Here's a new build, 1512. And by the way, the build numbers, the first 2 digits are the year, so 2015. The last 2 digits are the month. So Configuration Manager RTM is 1511. It was finished in November of 2015. You guys didn't have access to it until December, but they just left the build number 1511. So this says there's a new version of a preview version of Configuration Manager in December of 2015. So anything that comes out now will be 16 something. But anyway, so you can see it's available. That means it's been downloaded, it's been staged on the site server, and it's available to be updated. Here's the wizard. Oh, let me go back here. Up on the top, there's an action. Let me zoom back in for you, called Install Update Pack. So I went to the Install Update Pack option, and this wizard pops up. This wizard shows you, oops, sorry about that. My mouse is in the wrong spot. Tells you that this pack has server updates, console updates, client updates, and fixes. So what you would know as a cumulative update, hot fixes. So those are all there. I chose to do pre-production client testing. The default is upgrade without validating, which means install the 1512 client in my environment. Any new clients I install get 1512. If I have that automatic client upgrade feature turned on, they'll get automatically upgraded to 1512. I said, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do pre-production testing. I want you to test 1512 on all the clients in that collection only. Any new clients I were to install, get 1511. Any existing clients in that collection are going to get 1512, automatically required immediately on next client polling cycle. So I did that. Now you can see that it says, here's a status. It says it's checking prerequisites. It still has prereq checker, so it's doing that. Now I'm switching over to the monitoring workspace. You see I'm in the updates and service site servicing status node. And here it says we are that same status, prereq check passed with warnings. So I had a couple of warnings, but it passed anyway. And now I click let me go back. I click the show status button right here. So there's this show status button up on top. There's my mouse. I click that guy, and it brought up this. So now I can see more detailed status of what's going on. Here's all my prereq check stuff down here. And up here we installed a brand new service called the Configuration Manager Update Service, which is for updating Configuration Manager itself. So it's doing that, and then it tells me that, hey, there's a new version of the Configuration Manager console. You're running the old version of the console. Do you want to automatically upgrade to the new console version? And I was smart, and I said, okay. Which you don't have to. You can use the old console to talk to the new version. But as you see in the warning here, it says, using the old console might corrupt data. So you probably don't want to use the old console. So anyway, I did that. When I clicked OK, it immediately shut down my console. It downloaded the files from the staging location, installed them, and brought my console back up. So very cool. Now, once you get to 1511, this will also work with remote consoles, not just the console on your site server. So all those remote consoles you have out there for your admins and help desk people, they will get this same dialogue when they try and do anything in the console. Say, hey, there's a new version. Do you want to upgrade to it? And you click the old OK button, and within a couple of minutes, you got the new console running. Here's the pre-production client folder, or nodes, status. And I got one blue, which is no status, one light green, which is in progress. It shows me my client version. If you remember that first dialog I showed you, it was 8325 for 1511. This is 8336, so it's a new client version. It shows me I'm in progress with one of them. And finally, I get the dark green, which I don't really like, but I'm not in charge. And that dark green there is compliant. So one client has now successfully upgraded that client, pre-production client version. Again, if I deployed any new clients, they would be sitting over here in this node over here, production client deployment. They'd be sitting there with the 8325 version. But those in my target collection, which it tells me up here in the upper right. I know I keep zooming in and out. Hopefully you guys aren't getting seasick, but if you are, the restrooms are right around the hallway. But any clients in here are getting the 8336 build. So now, lastly, when I'm all done with my pre-production client testing, I know I'm over time, so I'll end here in just a second. Thank you. So when I'm all done with my pre-production client testing, what I do is I go back to right here, and there's this last radio button, which is not available right now because I'm not done with the update. But when I was done with the update, I would click that option, Client Update Options. It pops up a dialog. I click a checkbox that says, Make Pre-Production Production. And it moves my pre-prod version 8336 up to the production folder, wipes out 8325. Any new clients get the new build. Any auto-upgrade clients will get the new build, and so on. So very, very easy for you to test out your environment in a production scenario without you having to do a lot of creating your own collections and deployments and so on. So very cool. Okay. Last couple things, how to get there. I got a session tomorrow. So come to my session tomorrow. I think it's at 12:20 or something like that. I'll walk you through an in-place upgrade. But you can do an in-place upgrade from ConfigMan 2012, everything but the original 2012 RTM. You can't do an upgrade from that. But 2012 SP1, SP2, 2012 R2, R2 SP1. You can migrate from 2007. You can migrate from 2012 SP2, 2012 R2 SP1. And pretty easy process, and I'll show you that. It does require the Windows 10 ADK. So you do have to have the new ADK out there. So summary, hopefully you saw some good stuff in here that will incent you to want to go to Configuration Manager, the new release. And I'll show you how tomorrow afternoon. It is going to get updated every 3 to 4 months. A new release will be coming out fairly soon, within the next month or so. So it's going to be a 1602, 1603 type release. So eventually it's not going to be 1511 anymore. That'll still be your base, but you're going to upgrade on top of it using that updates and servicing feature. Full Windows 10 support, lots of OSD stuff, easy to get to, and I'll show you that tomorrow. And lastly, if anybody cares, one of the speakers here is starting a GoFundMe type scenario for Serbian refugees and the kids and so on. So you can go to that URL and find out about that if you so choose to donate and take part of that. So with that, I know I'm a few minutes over. I think it's lunchtime now. I don't think there's any sessions going on now, so I don't feel as bad running over. But you guys have all heard me talk before. You know I always run over. But anyway, I'll stop talking. I'll hang around as long as anybody wants to ask questions. I'll be around all of today and tomorrow. So be down on the Ask the Experts panel. So if you have questions, go ahead and send those in so you can ask those tonight at Ask the Experts. Otherwise, find me around and I'll chat and help you out with whatever I can. You guys have a great rest of your day and a good day tomorrow, and see you tomorrow at 12:20 or something like that. Thanks.